Hey, I'm Aaron from GameEnthus.com, and in this one I'm going to be previewing Point City. Point City is a 1-to-4 player engine building game from the makers of Point Salad. Point City was designed by Flatout Games members Molly Johnson, Robert Melvin, and Shawn Stankewich. In the US, Point City is being published by AEG. If you're already familiar with Point Salad, then you probably already know that you can make a salad and earn points, kind of just because you want to. However, in Point City, getting those coveted points require you to do just a little bit more.
You don't win friends with salad. You don't win friends with salad. You don't win friends with salad.
I'm not really sure what that meant, and I doubt it's true. Let's just take a look at Point City. So these are the components in Point City. I do not believe that these are the final components for the game, although it looks really close. And if you focus your attention on the center right here, you'll see that this looks like a P, and I'll be remiss if I did not awkwardly state that. So up here, you're going to have 160 resource/building cards. They come in 3 different tiers: tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3. And within each tier, you're going to have cards that have permanent resources and points. You're going to have cards that maybe just have points, and you're going to have cards that have the civic token on them. And I'll get into more detail about all that in just a moment. And on the backs of those cards, you're also going to have resources. So resources in tier 1 are going to be the single resources you see on the top row, and then resources in tiers 2 and 3 are going to be the double resources you see on the bottom row, in addition to the ingenuity cards. Also, each player would start off with 1 ingenuity card, and there happens to be one that has a little player logo on it, which means that whoever has that dealt to them would be the starting player in the game. Ingenuity cards are essentially wild cards that can substitute for any of the other 5 resources. Taking a closer look, in Point City, civic tokens are going to offer alternative and additional ways to score points, in addition to the points that are on the card. Many of them are going to be getting a certain number of points per permanent resource of that type, or maybe a little more points for having a pair of 2 different types of resources. So as you see at the top, you have 2 points per community permanent resource. To its right, you have 3 points per every industry and ecology permanent resources. And then others are just pure points. And of course, you have some that are giving you points if you are missing a certain permanent resource entirely. And then last, but certainly not least, you're going to have 2 market tokens, 1 for buildings, 1 for resources. You'll see if that works shortly. This is an example of what a 3-player setup might look like. All 3 players have an ingenuity card, which I mentioned before is a wild card, which can be used to replace any of the 5 resources. Whichever player gets dealt the ingenuity card with the player icon on it would be the starting player. Every card out now is a tier 1 card, because tier 1 gets stacked on top of tier 2, which gets stacked on top of tier 3. Once the market, this is called the market, cannot be refilled to be a 4x4, the game will come to an end. And these are the market tokens, which can be used to help you memorize what to put in place of what you took. You're seeing plenty of resource cards right now. Let me just quickly go over how the building cards are used. The cost to build a card is at the bottom of it. Any permanent resources, should the card have any, are in the upper left corner, and any points that the card offers are in the upper right. Some building cards have a civic icon on them. If you build one of these cards, you get to choose from one of the available civic tokens that are face up for all to see. So when anyone's turn begins, it's this player's turn now, you have the option of flipping over a resource card if it happens to be in a row or column that has all resources. Let's say I flip over this ecology card and I reveal the birdhouse. The birdhouse costs a community and an economy and is worth 4 points. So whether or not you've done the optional flip over a card if it appears in a row or column that has all resources, most regular turns, a typical turn would be you taking 2 orthogonally adjacent cards, or 2 cards from the top of the deck. While any resource can just be taken, I can take any of these resource cards, which means that I'd have to take something that's adjacent to it for my second card. However, you cannot take a building card unless you currently have the resources to build it. My first turn. let's say I decide to take this economy card. Okay. And now that I have ingenuity and economy, I have a wild and economy. So I could take this birdhouse and build it on my first turn. And I would discard the economy for the coin and the ingenuity in place of the community. And I would just put those off to the side. Just for an example, let's say I had a permanent economy resource and I still had the birdhouse and the ingenuity. I could use the ingenuity in place of the community, and then I could use my permanent economy resource to cover me for the coin to still build this birdhouse. Much like using resource cards are just one-time use as they get discarded, permanent resources can also only be used once per turn. So let's say I was building this bicycle repair shop. I couldn't use this coin for both of these coins. I could only use it once that turn. Or if I was building two buildings because I had a whole lot of resources and a whole lot of permanent resources, I could not double count this. So I can only use this coin once per turn. Then we get to refilling the market if necessary, because if you draw two from the top of the deck, you don't have to refill the market. Also, you cannot split it. You cannot take one card from the market and take a card from the top of the deck. Up to two from the market or two from the deck. And I say up to two from the market because if you take a resource card or take a building card that you can build, if it's surrounded orthogonally by building cards that you don't have the resources for, you can't take them. Just a point of correction, if you choose a card and you ultimately cannot take a card that's orthogonally adjacent to the card that you just picked up, then that original card you picked up, you just can't take. You have to take another two sets of cards that you're able to take, or just take two cards on the top of the deck. Heading back. And then refilling the market, you will replace a building card with a resource card and a resource card with a building card. You can use these market tokens to help you remember while you're taking your turn. So if you want to do it one at a time, so if I took a resource card, I'll put this here showing that I'm going to replace it with a building, and then vice versa. You also refill empty spaces top to bottom and left to right.
Right? Wrong. Right? Right?
And then play will go clockwise to the next player. As you're playing the game, when buildings come up, obviously you're going to be focused on the number of points that you see on those buildings. But also bear in mind, when you see a card that has the civic token on it, should you build that building? So if you build this bridge, which costs 3 industry, you would get your pick from the available civic tokens, which give additional scoring options, which is very key to winning this game. So you're going to want to do that. Let's say this was player one's city/tableau they built into the game. They built 3 buildings that had civic icons on them. So they were able to get 3 civic tokens, which is 6 points for every full set of each resource, permanent resource, 3 points for every pair of energy and economy, and then 2 points for every economy. So you would add up all the points on the cards that have points, then add up all the points for all of your civic tokens. Whoever has the most points wins the game. There's also a solo game in Point City where an AI has a much easier time building things than you do. Funny how that works. In Point City, in more ways than one, dinner just got a little bit crunchier. I happen to be hungry, and I couldn't be happier about it. If you wish to learn more about Point City, and perhaps maybe even secure a copy of your own, there will be a link in the description. Thank you for watching, take care, stay safe, and be blessed.